Screen is yours, Rav Bick.
Okay, Tov, good evening to everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are. I want to talk tonight about the din of Gerut, what's called Korban haGer. Everybody more or less knows the answer how Gerut is performed. The answer is Milah v'Tfilah, circumcision and immersion. But in fact, that's incorrect. The reason why the mistake is made will be immediately apparent. But the Gemara in Kritot, give me a second, I'll put it on screen. In the beginning of the second parak of Kritot, it's talking about something called Korban haGer, the sacrifice of haGer, and has the following statement, which is the normative statement as to how conversion is done. This is Daf Tet Amud Aleph. And it makes the following statement. If you quickly look over your instant memories of the Torah, there is no place in the Torah which says how to convert, although the word ger is mentioned many times. This Gemara says as follows: Kasher ta'asu kein yeyaseh ma atem minei damim afhem minei damim. Minei damim here means the word blood. It refers to a sacrifice. And then the Gemara then continues. I'm skipping 2 lines. Rabbi Omer, kachem ka'avotechem. Ma avotechem lo nichnesu labrit ela b'milah v'tefilah v'hartza'at dam. Af heim lo yikansu labrit ela b'milah v'tefilah v'hartza'at damim. This is the normative statement of conversion. And in fact, the reason why I want to speak about this now is not because I want to speak about conversion, even though very often people like to talk about Gerut in the context of Shavuot. But the real context here is, where do we learn how to convert? We learn how to convert from Ma'amad HaSinai. And therefore, it's really appropriate to Shavuot, because, as the Gemara says here, the Jews were Mekabel Torah. The Jews became Am Yisrael at HaSinai in 3 acts, 3 requisites. And that is Milah, Tevilah, Ve'hatza'at Damim. And therefore, the Gemara says, Kachem kavotechem. Any future person who wishes to achieve the same status that the Jewish people achieved at HaSinai also requires Milah, Tevilah, V'hatza'at Damim. This is quoted in the Rambam Lahalacha, and this, in fact, is the way that conversion is supposed to be done. So you will therefore ask, how is that possible? Then there shouldn't be any converts today, since we all know that nobody today could possibly convert through milah, circumcision, immersion, and also bringing a sacrifice, since there are no sacrifices. So the Gemara, in fact, asks that question and gives an answer. A few lines later in the Gemara, very conclusion of this sugya, the Gemara asks, how does anyone convert nowadays? Going down a few lines here. And the Gemara says, Ela me'ata. If you can see my cursor. I know there is a way to make a better cursor, but I don't seem to be able to find it. Ela me'ata. Ha'idna, today, the leka korban, there was no sacrifice. Lo nikabel gevim, then there's no longer any conversion. Amar Rav Bar Yaakov, v'chiyagur itchem ger asher betochechem. It's missing a word. It should say lidorotechem. The pasuk says you can have gevim lidorotechem, meaning in every generation, and therefore you just don't need to bring the korban anymore. So the law is, halacha is, that midioraita you need 3 things: milah, tefillah, the korban. But since today you can bring a korban, so you don't need a korban. So that halacha is really extraordinary. We have no other example where you need to do something, but if you can't do it, you don't need to do it. It's not a voluntary, it's not a suggestion. Wouldn't it be nice to bring a korban? It's not that significant things in our lives, we also bring a korban. No, but as the Gemara states, Ma atem, the Jews at Har Sinai. The Gemara has a derivation for each one of these steps, which we won't read now, but they had milah, tefillah, and also they had korbanot, as is mentioned in the end of Parshat Mishpatim. So too, that is how conversion is done. But since it says Davotechem, you can do it differently when it's unavailable. What happens to the necessity? How could that possibly be? According to most Rishonim, based on the Gemara in the previous page, if a ger in the time of the Beit HaMikdash would not bring a korban, he would either not be Jewish, or at the minimum, he would be asur b'bat Yisrael. He'd be unable to get married. And now that requirement simply disappears. So what the real question that I would like to try to answer, and the Gemara offers no other explanation other than to quote the pasuk, is how that is possible. To understand that, we need to understand something else. What's the purpose of this sacrifice? Why is a sacrifice necessary in order to make conversion possible? Or looking historically, why was the sacrifice necessary in order that the Jews should become Jews? In order that Am Yisrael should be constituted at Har Sinai when they first came and received the Torah there. So in order to understand that, we have to know what Korban we're talking about. The Korban that the Gemara is talking about that took place in Jewish history at Har Sinai is mentioned at the end of Parshat Mishpatim. The Gemara assumes, as we will soon see, that although it takes place, it's mentioned in Mishpatim, it took place before Matan Torah in Parshat Yitro. The very end of Mishpatim, it describes a brit, a ritual, where the Jews were encamped, there was a meal, Moshe Rabbeinu approached God, and it says there that they should bring korbanot. Moshe Rabbeinu takes the blood from this korban and he sprinkles it on the Jews. There's a serious, apparently important ceremony taking place, and it includes Vayishlach et na'arei b'nei Yisrael, pasuk perek chavdalit, pasuk hey, Vayishlach et na'arei b'nei Yisrael vayalu olot, vayizbechu zevachim shlamim ladonai parim. Concerning this sacrifice, there's a machloket, and now I'm not talking about it again now, I'm talking about the Jews at Har Sinai. Concerning the sacrifice, there's a machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel in the Gemara in Chagiga. The context is totally different. On Yom Tov, for instance, Shavuot, as well as Pesach, as well as Sukkot, so every Jew is required to Aliyah L'Regel. He comes to the Beit HaMikdash, Le'ra'ot et Pnei Hashem Elokecha, V'lo Yera'u Panai Rekam. He has to bring a Korban. The Korban is a Korban Olah. And that Korban Olah is called Olat Re'iyah. He also brings another Korban, because every Jew, when he comes to the Beit HaMikdash on Yom Tov, also brings a Chagiga. Chagiga is a kind of shlamim. Two different Korbanot. The Chagiga is Shalmei Simcha. It's expression of the joy. Eating meat is the way in which Simcha is expressed in the Beit HaMikdash. And he also has the Olat Re'iyah. There's a machloket, the first Mishnah in Masechet Chagiga has a machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. It's a strange machloket. Which Korban should be bigger? Which Korban should be fatter? Which Korban should you spend more money in getting ready? In other words, which Korban is more important? And then the Gemara later on asks, how do they reach the conclusions? Why? And what it comes down to is an Olah more important than a Shlamim, or Shlamim more important than an Olah? And each side, Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, bring proofs to their opinion. And we have the following statement. One of the different proofs, one of the different arguments that they bring is phrased by the Gemara in the following manner. So let me change the Gemara that we're looking at. So we have the Gemara in Chagiga. And we're interested in Beit Hillel. presumably we would also be interested in Beit Shammai if we wanted to learn the sugya in its totality. I'll mention Beit Shammai, but we're specifically interested in Beit Hillel. The Gemara had wanted to prove that an olah is a very important korban. We're mentioning the korban we just read about now. The Jews before, when they were receiving the Torah, they brought a korban. One of the korban they brought was an olah. But the thing is, the pasuk says that vayalu olot, and also vayizbechu zvachim. Zvachim means shlamim. So the entire proof made no sense because they brought both olot and zvachim. So the Gemara says that Beit Hillel answers that question by saying, Beit Hillel, ma'ishna chagiga deyeshna lifnei adibur. The korban shlamim of the chagiga, shlamim was brought. It's one of the first korbanot ever brought. It was brought before the Torah was even given. T'chtiv vayizbechu zvachim shlamim. Re'iyah nami achtiv vayalu olot. It says in the same pasuk that they also brought an olah. So how can you prove a shlamim is more important than an olah? The Gemara says, "Kasabi Beit Hillel olah shekrivu yisaba midbar olat tamid havai." So it's a strange answer. We're not going to go into the connections whether which korban is more important, but there's a statement made here that when the Jews received the Torah, they brought shlamim and olot, but the olah was nothing special. It was just an olat tamid. It was the same olah that is brought every day, twice a day, in the Beit HaMikdash. Whereas Beit Shammai Savri, olah shekrivu yisaba midbar olat re'iyah. Havai. It's exactly the kind of korban that Beit Shammai is interested in bringing. So you have a very strange statement here of Beit Hillel, that when the Jews were receiving the Torah and they brought a korban, which we know from the Gemara in Kvitut, was necessary in order to effect their conversion, but that korban was a shlamim, which Beit Hillel is very interested in, and there also was an olah, which is the olat tamid. Everybody will ask themselves, an olat tamid? The Mishkan hasn't been built yet. The Mizbeach has not been built yet. The mitzvah of korbanot has not been given yet. That's in Pashat, as we all know, in Pashat Pinchas. We read it a mere 2 weeks ago. Why were the Jews sacrificing on that particular day an olat tamid? It's not clear whether they continued or not. I suspect very strongly that was the only time they brought it, until a few months later, many months later, 8 months later, when they had actually completed the construction of the Mishkan. What is it doing here? What does it mean that Beit Hillel says that in the day of Kabbalat Torah, there was also a Korban Olah, but the Olah was Olat Tamid, the daily Shachrit Mincha sacrifice that is brought every day when the Beit HaMikdash is in existence. Beit Shammai has a simpler opinion. He says that it was an olat re'iyah, meaning the korban that's brought when you go to the Beit HaMikdash on a yantiv. So that makes sense here because you bring a korban when you go to see God. Mamad HaSinai was like seeing God. They did see God. Vayiru. So therefore, Beit Shammai is really saying, halachically, you bring a korban olat re'iyah 3 times a year. Shalosh pamim hashana yireh kol zechucha et pnei Hashem Elokecha b'makom asher yivchar. But historically, when the Jews met God, they came to Har Sinai, and God descended on Har Sinai, and they saw what they saw at the kolot, at the prakim, and according to the Midrash, they actually in some way perceived God Himself. So they also brought an olat re'iyah. That I can understand. But what is the meaning of the opinion here expressed by Beit Hillel that they brought an olat tamid, the daily korban? What I want to do, I want to understand what this korban meant at Har Sinai, and then we'll understand what it means for a convert. Because the Gemara in Kvitut says, you convert the way the Jews accepted the Torah. So if we understand what the Jews were doing at the acceptance of the Torah, we'll understand what this particular korban means in conversion. Let me retreat 2 steps. This is not an explicit Gemara anyplace, but almost everybody agrees on what it means. Why does a convert have milah and tvilah? Why is the way? Milah is a very important mitzvah. So over 612 other important mitzvot. Why is conversion affected by tefillah for men and women, and milah for males. So almost everybody, the Rav there's a footnote in the beginning of Kol Dodi Dofek by the Rav, and I never heard anybody say any other explanation. These are two aspects of Judaism. Since most people, when they're thinking about it, they're only thinking about milah v'tefillah and have conveniently forgotten about the Korban, which doesn't exist anymore. So they basically sum up Judaism on these two bases. What is milah? Milah is Brit Shel Avraham Avinu. It was before there was a Torah. It was the foundation of the tribe of the family of Avraham Avinu. The pasuk says you should induct your children as well as your slaves and everybody who belongs to your family into this mitzvah. Brito Shel Avraham Avinu. It's basically the national identity of the Jewish people, based on family. And he who converts, so who joins that Brit, it's that which binds us together as to being one people. Judaism consists of two things. It consists of a nationality, which cannot be denied, and it consists of a dedication to God, what we would call religion today. So that's milah v'tefillah. Milah is a mark on your body that makes you aside. It puts you aside. It separates you from humanity, and therefore you're considered to be part of the Jewish people. And tefillah is holiness or sanctity or purity. It involves a spiritual aspect rather than a national aspect. And that would have summed up all of Judaism. That's what everybody thinks. So now I have to explain there's a missing third, which was once very necessary, and today we've sort of skipped over it. And that missing third is the Korban of the Ger, which is a Korban Olah, and is based on the Korban Olah that was brought by the Jews at Har Sinai. So the question is, what is a Korban Olah? Specifically, what is Korban Olat Tamid? Because I'm really interested in Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai would be easier to answer. If anyone's curious about Beit Shammai, I'm sure you can answer it yourself. What is the Olat Re'iyah? Is a third aspect of Judaism, which makes a lot of sense why we don't have to do it today, because maybe it doesn't exist today. The third aspect of Judaism is seeing God, is being able to go to Har Sinai, or to Har Moriah, or to Yerushalayim, or to the Beit HaMikdash, and Shalosh Pamim Hashana Yera'eh Kol Zechucha, you actually meet up with God, which in a manner no longer exists. Doesn't exist in Judaism, so it doesn't exist in conversion either. But Beit Hillel, who's the way we paskin, I heard the last 2 minutes of Rabbi Taragin Shir, where he said that halacha prefers Beit Hillel, but sometimes we prefer Beit Shammai because there's more to talk about. Well, in this sense, I prefer Beit Hillel for the purposes of the shir, because I want to know what the halachic status of conversion is and the halachic status of bringing this korban. So what is the nature, what is the halachic implication of Korban Tamid? Interestingly enough, Korban Tamid appears twice in the Torah. One place we read this morning, because we read it every Rosh Chodesh. We read it 2 weeks ago when we read Pashat Pinchas. And I imagine that many of you know it more or less by heart. The beginning of the Pasha, which describes all the Musafim, before that is Korban Tamid. And it says, Tzavet b'nei Yisrael, Yamata alehem, Korbani lachmi le'isha, Yireich nichuchi tishmuru lakriv li b'morado. The Pasha, many people also say it every single morning, so you sure you know it by heart then. The exact, almost exact, same Pasha appears in Sefer Shmot, at the end of Pashat Tetzaveh. Here it's at the end of the Pasha. Only once a year do we read this Pasha. It's at the end of the Pasha. Some people might have already lost concentration. So I imagine we pay less attention to it. And we surely don't know it by heart. What's interesting is that the psukim are extremely similar. They're almost the same. One or two small differences, which we don't have time now to consider, and one major difference, which I do want to consider. I'm not going to demonstrate the parallelism between the two Pashiot, but they're very similar. For instance, in Pashat Pinchas, it says you should bring 2 korbanot. What are they? Et hakeves ha'echad, hakeves echad, taseh b'boker, ve'et hakeves hasheni taseh ben ha'abayim. In Pashat Tetzaveh, it says you're going to build a mizbeach, and this is what you're going to do on the mizbeach. Et hakeves echad, taseh b'boker, ve'et hakeves hasheni taseh ben ha'abayim. That's word for word the same thing. There's one extra hay. The Mefarshim actually ask why the extra hay is there. But it's obviously a parallel pasuk. And then it says you have to bring a mincha and the sachim of wine with it. So in Pinchas it says, Asirit ha'ifas solat mincha, tu'ula b'shem katit rebiyitahin. In Pashat Tetzaveh it says, V'asiron והעשירון סולת בלול בשמן כתית, רבע ההין ונסח רביעית ההין יין, הכבש האחד. Psukim are very much the same. Now we have a clearly parallel pasuk, but with a major difference. There's a summation to this parsha in Parshat Pinchas. Olat tamid ha'asuya b'har Sinai l'reach nichoach ishel Adonai. So you should bring an olat tamid. Now there's like a conclusion pasuk. Olat tamid, what is it? Ha'asuya b'har Sinai l'reach nichoach ishel Adonai. In Parshat Tetzaveh, where it's describing the construction of the Mishkan. That was Parshat Truman, Parshat Tetzaveh, has the Kohanim, and then the construction of the Mizbech. And then it says, this is what you're going to do on the Mizbech. We're doing in construction now. It says, Olat Tamid Lidorotechem Petach Oel Moed Lifnei Adonai Asher Be'edachem Shama Ledaber Edach Hashem. It's a totally different pasuk, although it begins the same way. Olat Tamid. And what is it? It should be the place. Ha'asuya B'har Sinai. And here it says, a place. Petach Oel Moed. Petach Oel Moed and Har Sinai are not the same place. They might have been far apart, but they're not the same place. And here you have a major difference between these two parshiot, two different status, two different purposes. Technically speaking, two different places where the Olat Tamid is related to. So if you look at Parshat Tetzaveh, and the pasuk continues to explain what they're talking about. I'm going to read these psukim, and everybody will understand immediately what the point is. Olat tamidu dorotechem. You bring an olah, constant. What does constant mean? Twice a day. But that's called constant. In other words, regularly. Olat tamidu dorotechem. Petach ohel moed lifnei Adonai. In the Mishkan, ohel moed. So the altar was at the Petach ohel moed. You should bring the Korban there. Why? It says, Asher ivaed lachem shama ledaber elech Hashem. The Ohel Moed is defined as the place where I meet you, plural you, Am Yisrael. Asher ivaed lachem shama ledaber elecha, to speak to Moshe there. V'no'adti shama livnei Yisrael, and I will meet the Jews at that place. V'nikdash bichvodi, and I will be sanctified in my honor. וקידשתי את אוהל מועד, ושכנתי בתוך בני ישראל, והייתי להם לאלוהים, וידעו כי אני אדוני אלוהים, אשר הוצאתם מארץ מצרים, ושוכני בתוכם, אני אדוני אלוהים. The purpose of the Korban Tamid is that's the place, it takes place in where God meets man, God meets the Jews, and therefore he dwells in their midst. In other words, the Korban Tamid is the cement between the Jews and God. That's what the pasuk says explicitly. And that's why this is actually the very end of the construction of the Mishkan. Mishkan was Truma and Tetzaveh. This is practically the last psukim, and it's a concluding pasuk. It sounds like you do this, you make the mizbeach, you bring the korbanot twice a day. V'shachanti b'toch b'nei Yisrael v'yiti lehem le'elohim. The opening pasuk of the construction of the Mishkan was v'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham, and this is the final pasuk. V'shachanti b'toch b'nei Yisrael. I will dwell in their midst. But that's not the pasha in Pinchas. Where there the pasuk ignores or skips or gets rid of, erases the Olat Tamid Petach Ohel Moed, and writes something which actually technically doesn't make any sense. Olat Tamid ha'asuya b'har Sinai. There's a command for the future. When you build the Beit HaMikdash or in the Mishkan, you should bring a Korban twice a day. And this is what Korban, Olat Tamid? It's a daily sacrifice. Ha'asuya b'har Sinai. What does that even mean? Ha'asuya b'har Sinai. What Korban was done at Har Sinai? The Reach Nichalach Ishel Adonai. Nothing about Ohel Moed, nothing about Lishochni B'tocham, nothing about dwelling in their midst, nothing about meeting the Jews, nothing about talking to Moshe Rabbeinu. You should bring an Olat Tamid Ha'asuya b'har Sinai. It's a clear reference, and this is why Beit Hillel says what he says, that the Korban HaTamid that is brought every day, twice a day, for the next 1,000 years, is a Korban Tamid HaAsuya b'har Sinai, a reference to Parshat Mishpatim. This is on what Beit Hillel bases his opinion, that a Korban Tamid was first brought not in response to the command of God in the Mishkan, after it would be built, together with all the other korbanot of the entire year. But the first time it was brought was on Har Sinai, when they receive the Torah. And what we call Korban Tamid is a recreation of that sacrifice. God commands in Parshat Pinchas, you should bring a Korban every day, twice a day. What is the Korban? Ha'asuya b'har Sinai. The Korban that you brought once, when you first came to Har Sinai, and you were preparing to receive the Torah, which we know that halacha says is one of the elements in conversion and the creation of Am Yisrael. So the Torah commands you should bring it over and over again for the rest of the existence of the Beit HaMikdash. What is the meaning of this Korban Tamid? There are clearly two different parshiyot here, but the one that interests Beit Hillel is the Pasha in Pinchas, not the Pasha of Tetzaveh, because Pinchas says Olat Tamid is Ha'asuya b'har Sinai. So I'm going to suggest the following explanation. What's described in Tetzaveh as amazing as it is, that there exists a place where God meets the Jewish people, v'no'adti lachem shama, where God speaks to the Nevi'im, to Moshe Rabbeinu. And the purpose of that is l'shochni b'tocham. That is not the Korban, which is a essential element in the creation of the Jewish people. It's the same Korban, but that's not the aspect that we're talking about. So what is this other aspect, which doesn't mention Ohel Moed, doesn't mention meeting, doesn't mention Shechina, doesn't mention speaking, has nothing to do with the creation of the Mishkan, that the altar should always have the Korban Tamid Ha'asuya b'har Sinai. And I think the explanation is, if we realize that we're talking about Pashat Pinchas, recreating Pashat Mishpatim, what is Pashat Pinchas about? The Pasha begins, the Pasha that we're talking about, וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, שב את בני סבת עליהם, את קורבני לחמי לאישי, ריח ניחוחי, תשבעו להקריב לי במועדו. And then it says, וביום השבת, שני כבשים בני שנה תמימים. And then it says, ובראשי חודשיכם תקריבו, עולה לאדוני, פרים בני בקר שניים, ועייל אחד, the reading of this morning. And then it says, ובחודש הראשון ב14 יום לחודש פסח לאדוני, the reading of Pesach. And then it has the reading of Yom HaBikurim, the reading of Shavuot, Haba Aleinu L'Tova. The Korban HaTamid of Pashat Pinchas is embedded in Avodat Beit HaMikdash. There's a altar, there's a sanctuary, there's a temple, there's a Mishkan, and these are the Korbanot that you bring all the time there. It's what we call Avodah. The word Avodah is taken from that totality of ritual, which is Avodat Beit HaMikdash. Today we speak of Avodah as Tefillah. That's a balev. It's an internal recreation of Avodat Beit HaMikdash. What is Korban HaTamid? Korban HaTamid is the way that the Jewish people serve God. It doesn't mention here that when that takes place, you'll have a religious experience. You're gonna hear the voice of God, as Moshe Rabbeinu heard B'Petach Ol Moed. It doesn't say that you will be Hashem shochen b'tochechem, that God will dwell in your midst. It simply says, I'm giving you the Torah, you're going to build a Mishkan, and this is what you do. This is the daily service. The word service is a direct translation of the word avodah, and both of them we've sort of forgotten the original meaning. It means to be an eved. To serve means to serve, to be a servant. And la'avodat Hashem means to be a servant of God. The service of God in this world, not in your heart, which is tefillah, but in the real world, is Avodat HaKorbanot. What do? 2 Korbanot, one in the morning, one in the evening. On special days, Musaf, Od Musaf, Od Musaf, Od Musaf. Every day has its requisite service of God in the Beit HaMikdash. And if that Korban is described in Pinchas as being Ha'asuya b'har Sinai, it's the same Korban that the Jews brought out of the ordinary, before there even existed a temple ritual, but they brought a korban at the foot of Har Sinai as part of Kabbalat HaTorah b'Har Sinai. And then Chazal in Masechet Kritut say that the way to become Jewish, the way that they became Jewish, and the way that a ger today becomes Jewish is by 1, tefillah, which we've defined as hitarut, purity and sanctity. 2, milah, joining the family, the brit, the covenant that Avraham Avinu had for him and his children. And 3, bringing a korban. But what is this korban? The service of God. Seems like an obvious notion once you say it. Becoming Jewish meant becoming holy and pure. It means joining the family, the nation, the people of Israel. But it also means, as a necessary and required part of the process, accepting upon oneself the service of God, entering into the service of God. And the service of God in the Torah is Lavi Korbanot. And therefore there's one Korban. Which Korban? The Korban HaTamid. There are all kinds of special Korban. But the Korban HaTamid means every day I get up, and the Jewish people as a whole, every day get up and Keves Achad Baboker, Keves Achad Bein HaArbayim. You bring one keves, because that is Avodat Hashem, and then you go about your private business. So we have now an explanation of the process that we are describing. Min Torah, according to what the Gemara says is the source for conversion, based on the way the Gemara understood the story, the narrative of the Jews, so to speak, conversion. They're entering into becoming the Jewish people at HaSinai. You have 3 essential principles. One is you have to join the body of Israel. You have to join the family of Avraham Avinu. You have to separate from humanity to some extent and become a separate stock, a separate body, the body politic of Knesset Yisrael. That's called Milah. 2, you have to separate yourself from Tum'ah, from Chol. There's certain spiritual refinement that a person has to undergo in order to become Jewish, to stand before God and receive the Torah, and to become Jewish in conversion. And 3, there's an essential element which says that you now take upon yourself the burden of maintaining the service of God b'Mishkan, b'Beit HaMikdash. And let us recall, it's not an individual action. All of Am Yisrael brings one korban. The world, God created the world and asked the Jews in one place, one central location, the Yerushalayim, the Beit HaBechira, the chosen spot, that there the service of God should be constant. Tamid, keves achad baboker, keves achad bein ha'arbayim. Who takes care of that? That's the job. It's the obligation. It's the mission of the Jewish people who were chosen for that. Now that's not just an extra thing. What Beit Hillel is saying is that was Kabbalat Torah. Kabbalat Torah was saying, I am going to purify myself. 2, I'm going to join. I'm going to accept upon myself the meaning of being part of Avraham Avinu's legacy. And 3, I'm going to be the place where God's name is sanctified in the world, because there's a constant service of God taking place b'Beit HaMikdash. And if you don't do those 3 things, the Gemara says, you're not Jewish, or you're not totally Jewish. I'm not going to get involved in a very complicated disagreement among the Rishonim as to whether you can possibly be half Jewish if you don't do. If you do 2 out of 3, are you 2/3 Jewish or 0 Jewish? The Pashup Pshat is you're not Jewish at all. Some Rishonim think that you're on the way, but you're not Jewish completely, because you've only done 2 out of 3. And therefore we discover now an element which I think everybody understands that it's true, but maybe we've forgotten how essential it is. Being Jewish has 3 stages. It means spirituality. You go to mikveh, you feel you've changed, you've purified yourself, and now you can have a different relationship with God. Very, very important. 2, it's milah, meaning you're not an individual. You can't do it on your own. You're part of an entire section of humanity which has been separated, God chose Avraham Avinu and said to him, leave. Lech lecha. Separate yourself from where you come from, your genetic origin. And every Jew has to do that as well. Every Jew is that as well, and every convert has to do that as well. But that's only 2/3 of Judaism. There's a third part of Judaism that says to be Jewish by definition, and without this definition, you're not fully Jewish, is to be Oved Hashem. What does it mean, Oved Hashem? To maintain the service of God in the world. To make sure that God has a sanctuary. To make sure that God has a place, and I don't even begin to understand what this means, but that God has a place where that is his place, that is his bayit. Bano baniti bayit l'Hashem. It's true, Shlomo HaMelech said, Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim lo yechalkelucha. The entire universe can't contain God. Afki habayit hazeh, can this little house do it? And the answer is yes, but somehow. And that is the job of being Jewish. You don't get that after you're Jewish. That's how you become Jewish, by accepting that job. I'd like to suggest that now we can understand the amazing halacha about how you can become Jewish without doing it. Because, and this might hurt a little bit, because without a Beit HaMikdash, you don't really do it. In other words, the convert has to become a Jew like a Jew is a Jew. But when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Judaism changed. We can still, in some, I'm not saying, I don't want to be too extreme, in some metaphoric manner, of course, we're still Ovdei Hashem on an individual level. But we don't maintain sanctuary of God. It doesn't exist. God rejected it because of our sins. And therefore, to be Jewish, it isn't that conversion has changed. Being Jewish has changed, has become impoverished. Being Jewish today is being part of the Jewish people. Being Jewish today is a spiritual legacy. And being Jewish today is remembering that we're supposed to be Oved Hashem. We still do it balev, because we daven. But we don't maintain Shem Hashem ba'olam, because there's no place where Shem Hashem nikra sham. And therefore the convert also gets the same pass. Amazingly enough, the Gemara says that Medina, when the Beit HaMikdash will be built, every convert will then have to bring the Korban. He's supposed to write down. The Gemara suggested that a convert who gets converted today should write down on a little piece of paper that he owes a Korban. Because then Judaism will become enriched. We will go back to being Jews in a full sense of the word. And then the converts will also have to become Jewish in the full sense of the word. Then the Gemara says not to do it because, well, they realized that the Beit HaMikdash was not being built too quickly and there'll be too many holy animals running around. And so, therefore, just remember that it needs to be done. But we've learned from analyzing the laws of conversion and realizing the laws of conversion are based on the laws of what does it mean to be Jewish, and realizing that we ignored all our lives the third aspect of what it means to be Jewish. Legitimately. Why do we ignore it? I'm suggesting because it doesn't exist. But it's supposed to exist. It's what was meant to exist. It is still our mission. We just are hobbled. And that lack isn't just a lack of one mitzvah, two mitzvahs, three mitzvahs, actually a lot of mitzvahs. The many mitzvahs that are dependent on one Beit HaMikdash. It's at least 33% of what it means to be a member of Am Yisrael, what it means to be Jewish. And I think we do attempt to do it in a very weak and desiccated manner, because every Jew carries the name of God into the world. But it's not what God intended. It doesn't have the full flower and the full potential and the full force of all of Am Yisrael bringing one Korban in one central place, which says, Hashem Melech Allah Olam. We create God's name. We put God's name down as Melech HaOlam, which is why every day, 3 times a day at least, in the way we daven today, we say, Bayom Ahu, Yeh Hashem Echad, Ushmo Echad, Vayah Hashem HaMelech HaKol HaAretz, Bayom Ahu. The kingship of God on the world, which is what our service of God is supposed to maintain. We are servants of the King, and therefore our job is to proclaim His majesty. So I can say it, I try to say it, we can try to act as servants of God by doing all these mitzvot, but the majesty of God, the kingship of God in the world will only take place when Hashem Yimloch B'Yerushalayim, Shem Echad, Bayom Hu Yeh Shem Echad U'Shmo Echad at that time. And that's what we learned from analyzing these laws. It was a little complicated. I'm going to remind you now what we did, because that's so simple. We started in the Gemara in the Sechet Pitut. It says how to become a ger. It mentioned the Korban. Didn't know what the Korban meant. So we went to Masechet Chagiga, where the original Korban, not the Korban haGer, but the Korban what the Korban haGer was based on, the Olah of Har Sinai, is defined by Beit Hillel as being a Korban Tamid. But I didn't know what a Korban Tamid was. So then we went to the two Parshiyot and realized which aspect of Korban Tamid are we interested in. Not that which has God speaking to you, but that which is the Tmidim, Kesidram, Umusafim, Kehilchatam, the daily maintaining of God's name, God's place, God in the world. And then we realized that without a Beit HaMikdash, that isn't really true. It should be true. It's true in a secret, esoteric manner. It's true in our hearts. We try to maintain it. But as a fact in the world requires a real building and a real Mizbeach and a real Korban. As a fact in the world, so Ein Shem Hashem Malei ve'Ein Kes Hashem Malei, God's name and God's throne are not complete because the world doesn't reflect it. And therefore, Judaism is incomplete. And therefore, it turns out that you can become a convert by converting to incomplete Judaism. You only need to do 2 out of 3 things, because you're becoming an incomplete Jew also. But incomplete converts and incomplete Jews are the same thing, so it's 100% fine as long as we are in the state of incomplete Judaism. Every Yom Tov, we're now approaching Shavuot, every Yom Tov is first and foremost a day in the Beit HaMikdash. Aliyah Levegel. We have Tfilat Musaf. What is Tfilat Musaf? It's the Korban Musaf. That's what it's all about. And therefore, every Tfilah on Yom Tov talks about we're sad. Who remembers to be sad on Yom Tov? The Tfilah Musaf is Mipnei Chata'enu Galinu Me'atzenu, because we realize, was it's a Yom Tov, but then we're supposed to come to God for Har HaBayit. We're living in another world. We're living in a world that's basically destroyed. The most important facet is missing. So we shouldn't be sad on Yom Tov, Chas v'Shalom, but we should realize and reconnect to how much we have to do now to maintain as best we can the semblance of the majesty of God in the world, and also realize how much we're missing and how much we have to aspire to the day when Bayom Hu Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad in a full and complete sense. So we should have a good Yom Tov. We should, depending on where you are, Bezrat Hashem, I plan to be in Shul on Shavuot in some way. And if you're not going to be in Shul on Shavuot, then you should know you're not in the Beit HaMikdash anyhow, so it's not that terrible thing. The main thing is to realize Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim is something which we have to do. We have to try and fix it for tomorrow. Bezrat Hashem will also celebrate in the near future Shavuot and all the other Chagim, not just in Shul, but together, Beit HaMikdash, B'mevi Yameinu, V'Yerushalayim, Habnuya.
Amen.